Yo, 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 what's going on, my fantastic family and friends? It is your boy, Mr. Dominique, aka the Scorpio King, baby. I'm right back at you with another episode of Dom's World from right up top. You know the routine. You got your world, I got mine. Let's get right into chopping it up. But first off, swiggy swig. Cheers to you. All right. So, family, what I want to talk about, what I want to chop up, I want to deep dive. Okay. So, let's go on a little ride here for a moment. Let's deep dive, if you will. So, I put on this shirt today. Can you see this shirt? Gremlins. This is an 80s movie, 90s era, so 80s babies, 90s babies are very familiar with the Gremlins, part 1, part 2. All right. So the Gremlins, and let me make sure you get all this. See that? That little handsome little creature right there, that's Gizmo. All right. And in the background is a shadow, which looks like an evil shadow, but that's really what the a gremlin turns into. All right, so this little thing turns into this thing, and you have to see the movie to see what this thing really looks like. Okay, like you have to see the movie. It's like reptilian looking, it's like an ugly reptile version of what Gizmo looks like. Okay, so I want to use this movie in my message today. All right, so in this movie Gremlins, Gizmo is this furry little creature that I showed you. This cute, cuddly little creature. Yes, I said Gizmo is adorable. I remember growing up, my family used to think, my grandma and her sisters used to think E.T. was adorable. Oh, that cute little E.T. I used to love that movie E.T. That movie came out when I was young too, and I saw nothing adorable about E.T. Mac from Mac and Me. I saw nothing adorable about these little things, these little creatures, these little aliens that they made movies about. But Gizmo, on the other hand, I don't know if it was because he was furry or what, his little voice, the way he sings, but Gizmo, I wanted a gremlin. Okay, I wanted Gizmo. When I was younger, I really wanted a gremlin. I did. Man, if we could have had them things for real, I would have been praying for a gremlin. I thought Gizmo was that adorable. I really wanted one. So let's move forward into my message here. If in the movie, there's 3 things that you cannot do to Gizmo. You know what I'm saying? You cannot shine bright lights in his face. For some reason, he does not take well to bright lights. And you could not feed him after midnight. Feeding him after midnight would bring forth what I like to call a goblin. Okay, so for sake of this video, let's call this version of a gremlin a goblin, because that's what I used to say anyway. I hated saying the good gremlin, the bad gremlin. All right, which is what it is, because they're all called gremlins. But for the sake of this video, let's call this version of a gremlin a goblin. So you can't feed Gizmo after midnight. After midnight, a gremlin turns into a goblin, and then you can't get Gizmo wet with water. If he gets wet with water, then out of his body pops more gremlins, which are basically goblin versions of a gremlin, because they look just like Gizmo. They're furry, just like he is, but they're just the evil version of what he is, pretty much. They just haven't turned into the reptilian looking goblin yet. It seems like in order to get that version of them, you have to feed them after midnight. So there's your 3 rules. Don't shine a bright light in his face. Don't feed him after midnight. Don't get him wet. How hard can it be, right? Imagine if kids would have had those growing up back in the 80s. Gremlins would have tore this world apart. Plain and simple. Once you saw what they did in the movie, this world wouldn't have stood a chance. So I'm actually glad Gremlins didn't exist for real, okay? Now, when you get in the movie, Gizmo got wet. And when he got wet in the movie, gremlins popped out. The bad gremlins popped out. And then at some point in the movie, they manipulated, because this is how evil works. This is how negativity works. These little gremlins were smart enough to manipulate their owner. They unplugged the clock so that he couldn't see what time it was, and they decided to be hungry and act hungry, and he fed them after midnight. They purposely planned that out. That's how evil is. It's very cunning. The evil gremlins were smart enough, cunning enough, and manipulating enough to unplug the clock so that the owner didn't see the clock, and he fed them after midnight. So therefore, they were able to go into a incubation stage. They went into these like cocoons, and once they burst out the cocoons, you got what I call the goblins, the bad gremlins. Okay, I say that to say this: it's funny how Gizmo was sweet, adorable, and he was good. In part 1 and part 2, Gizmo was simply just good. He could do no wrong. He was absolutely adorable. First message I want to say is you need to know when one is enough. You need to know when you have one of something. You need to realize how special it is just the way it is. Sometimes what you have in front of you is beautiful just the way it is. If anybody would have had Gizmo, they would have wanted to make more Gizmos. The problem is making more Gizmos, that's not possible. He's the only one that is made the way he is. If another gremlin comes from him, it's just bad. It's just bad. And it's trying its best to get to the stage of evil goblin. Because being a bad gremlin isn't enough for them. They want to become the evil goblin. No matter what you do, you can't get another Gizmo. There's only one. So sometimes appreciate what you have in front of you when you have it, and appreciate it for what it is and how it is, the way it is. Okay? Message number 1. Number 2. These gremlins that came from Gizmo, they actually hated Gizmo. They despised Gizmo. They didn't like Gizmo. And it's like, well, how is that possible? He's like pretty much the father of all of them, right? But the bad gremlins didn't like him, and definitely the evil ones didn't like him. From this good little creature came all that evil. How is that even possible? When you think about that, and even though it's just a movie, but how is it possible that Gizmo could create so much evil little creatures? They stem from him. Where I'm going with this is God tells you in the Bible that he created everything. He created the light, the good, the evil, the wind, the earth, the fire, the trees, all of this. God created the devil. God allowed the evil to come into this world for a reason. We may never understand that. Just like I don't understand how from Gizmo came all those bad little creatures when there's not a shred of evil in him at all. How from God and all his creations, how do we get the devil? Well, God tells you he created all that. He created the evil in the world. But he also gave us the blueprint. Not just the Bible, but the word within us. The common sense within us. The discernment within us. Clairvoyance within us. The ability to read and gain knowledge and become smarter. He also gave us the tools that we need to know how to combat that evil that's in this world. This is not a perfect world. Okay? Gizmo himself was not perfect. He was not perfect. Although he seemed to be perfect, he was not perfect because from him stemmed those bad little things. That's just the way he was made up. From that good little furry, adorable little creature came those goblins. Those goblins chose to be the way that they are. They chose the evil. No different than Satan himself chose the evil. God gives us all free will. A lot of times some parents, message number 3, don't understand after all they've done to provide for the kids and give them everything that they can give them, their kid still turns out bad. Or the kid still makes bad choices and bad decisions. The kid still goes down a dark path. And some people look and say, I don't understand how those kids came from that mother right there. She's a sweet woman. I don't know how those kids came from that father right there. I know he raised those kids right. It's because everyone has a choice. At some point, everyone has a choice and they choose their path. Even your children choose their path. Our children choose their path. Those gremlins that stem from Gizmo, they chose to be bad. And they chose to be evil goblins. They chose their path. They didn't want to be anything like Gizmo. And sometimes our children, they choose their own path and they don't want to be anything like us. They don't want to be anything like the way we raised them. This message is for somebody. This is for somebody because I didn't even come here thinking to talk about this one. But God led me to this part. You a Gizmo. Mom, Dad, you are a Gizmo. You're a good parent. You're adorable. Everyone loves you. You're great and you did all you could do. But yep, from you stem those bad seeds. And not because you evil. It's because they chose to be themselves. You can't look at Gizmo and look at a goblin and say, oh, I see why the goblin the way it is. Look at Gizmo. You can't get that. Some parents, sometimes you can look at a child's parent and say, yep, I see where they got it from. But not in every case. There are some parents out there who are doing the best that they can, but their children are they just keep choosing to do the wrong thing. And all you can do, Mom, all you can do, Dad, is pray for them, okay? All you can do is pray for them. I wish you nothing but the best because right now I know I'm talking to somebody. I'm talking to a parent right now. This part of my video, I didn't even come here thinking to talk about this, but God led me here. I'm talking to a parent right now. I want you to know, don't give up on your child, okay? Don't give up on your child. Keep praying for your child. Keep praying for them, all right? But it's not your fault that they are the way that they are. That's not your fault. You know it's not your fault. Some of y'all parents, you know it's your fault, okay? Like some parents, just keep it real. You screwed your kids up. The life you lived screwed your kids up. And it would have screwed up any kid. Your life was screwed up, so you screwed up your kids' life. Some parents are just like that. They just keep the cycle going. But who I'm talking to right now, you are one of those parents that broke the cycle. The cycle was broke when it came to you. You actually have done everything that a parent would do. You've done a great job. You've done the best you could do. But your child went out into the world, got a taste of the world, and decided to just do things differently. It happens. I pray for mine right now all the time, because I couldn't imagine watching my child go through a life of just bad decision after bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And as a parent, you just sit there and watch that because you love them. Okay, so whoever that was for, you're a Gizmo. And yes, somehow you produce goblins. That's not your fault. That's not your fault. It ain't Gizmo's fault that he produced those goblins. All right? And if you think about it, Gizmo went out of his way to not get wet and not eat after midnight. It was always some kind of accident, somebody knocking over a glass of water or accidentally doing something to him to get him wet. Both movies, both times. Never his fault. He don't go get wet on purpose to create more of these things. He don't eat after midnight on purpose. He knows. No. Gizmo knows he don't want nothing to do with giving birth to these goblins. Some of y'all out there giving birth to goblins. And you know you are. But there's a few of you out there who have no idea. And it ain't your fault, baby. It ain't your fault, okay? With that being said... Okay, with that being said, y'all, a lot of times, evil comes from good. In the case of this movie, Gremlins, my last point I want to make, Gizmo was good. And from him came the evil goblins. Like I was saying earlier, God created this world, and God is good. From him, yet, he created Satan, or he created Lucifer, the angel, who therefore, somewhere along the lines, became Satan, the devil. But God created Lucifer. He created Lucifer, an angel. From good, somehow evil was born. Lucifer started deciding to be who he wanted to be. He made his own choices. God allowed Cain and Abel to be born, two brothers. And yet, from that, the first murder was created. That's a good thing. These two brothers are born together. No one has, they can grow up with each other. They have each other. They have friendship, kinship. But out of jealousy, somehow jealousy was born, which gave birth to the very first murder. From good comes evil when good is betrayed. When good feels betrayed in any kind of way, when good gets hurt, when good gets betrayed, when good feels backstabbed, here comes evil. The roots of evil a lot of times are right from from goodness. A person who is good and they get hurt. A person with great intentions and they get betrayed. I don't know if this is a good example, but I know a lot of us, we've been watching the Jeffrey Dahmer series, and Jeffrey Dahmer was a monster. Plain and simple, he was an evil monster. He was an evil monster. But a lot of times you understand where these people come from when you can see the roots of their problem. When the story takes you, when you watch this show and you see how his mother and father raised him, how they neglected him, how he was treated, what she went through while she was pregnant with him. Like just everything, when you look at all, when you go to the roots of it all, you can understand where the monster came from. That's the way it is a lot of times. Sometimes you just got to go to the roots and understand, where did this monster came from? What made this person be the way that they were? But it throws you completely off when you go to the roots and you find a gizmo. It throws you off. It's like, wait a minute. Well, where does Goblin come from? Gizmo is nothing like that. But yet, the Goblin is the Goblin. That's when you know that it's not always a person's upbringing. It's not always a person's environment. It's not always a person's mom and dad that make them who they are. It's not always. You understand what I'm saying to you? The key word is always. It's not always someone else's fault that you are the way you are and you grew up the way you grew up. It's not always their fault. Sometimes the monster is the monster because they choose to be. Evil is evil because it chooses to be. And it got nothing to do with nobody else but that person themselves. We were just deep diving today, family. That's all. Put the shirt on. I just tried to figure out how can I use this shirt to give a message today. If you like what you hear, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for all notifications. Like and share your boy videos. I'm Mr. Dominique, a.k.a. the Scorpio King, saying peace, one love, stay blessed, keep your vibrations up. Namaste. I love you. I'm out.